Welcome to Unfiltered STEM with the YPB. If you can, grab a drink, maybe a snack, and let's get started.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unfiltered STEM. So today we are talking about Chartership, why we want it, how we do it, what's even the point. I am your host B. I want to get chartered. I haven't really looked at it. It seems really scary to me. And I am joined by Lucy.
Hi everyone, I'm Lucy. My incorporated engineer status with the Royal Aero Society. I got that some point last August, I think. So I think it's been about a year.
We're also joined by Susie.
Hi, I'm Susie. I'm an electrical engineer and I am chartered as of January this year with the IET.
And we're joined by Fiona, do you want to tell us why we're here today, Fiona?
Fiona, I'm a chemical engineer and we're here because I need to get my butt in gear and get chartered with the iChemE.
So, welcome to the survival guide for Chartership, which is basically just us making sure that Fiona does her chartership because we love her and we want her to do well. Kick us straight off, Fiona. Why do you want to be chartered? This isn't an actual interview, this is just for my own amusement.
No, that will come later. Right, there's two sides to it. The first sincere and nice side is it's like the next step professionally. It's, you know, you went to school, you finished school, you got your degree at university. So I have a master's in applied chemistry and chemical engineering. You go to uni, you get your job. You know, I've done a grad scheme. It's the next step in your progression professionally. That's the sincere side. I'll be quite blunt, as I think people tend to appreciate, or they have in the conversations I've had about it anyway. Being chartered is something that goes on your CV. It is a good stamp against your name and it opens doors. It opens doors to either new jobs or, quite importantly, money. You hear quite a bit now about people, and some companies might not even promote people in company anymore if they're not chartered. It's more, you don't want it to be a stopping point if you don't have it and you have the opportunity to do it. So that's why I really need to get on with it and have it. So that it's kind of like a driving license. It's better to have it than to not, and it's better to do it sooner than later.
So Susie, why was it you wanted to get chartered?
I think Fiona pretty much summed up all my reasons pretty well. My company stopped promotions after a certain point, so to become a senior engineer within my team, I had to be chartered. So that was a motivation. Because of that, there's a lot of support for during the chartership process within my company, which is great. So I would rather it was like that and there was all the support than maybe be left on my own. But yeah, also I wanted to get that stamp so that, you know, if I want to move job, or to be honest, if I want to move job, it's kind of like that seal of approval. This engineer knows what they're doing. It makes it a lot easier to move, particularly if you're going to move industries as well.
Lucy, what about you? Why did you want to get chartered?
So for me, it was, I guess, kind of similar to what's being said. It was that professional recognition. So being able to have it on even, you know, just like literally my email signature. So people, when they're reading my emails, they know it's coming from, they can see both my degree, my master's degree, and I've got my IEng. And it gives that confidence almost that I am accredited. I do know what I'm talking about. So it gives me that, well, not really me that reassurance, but others that reassurance. And I wanted to also be able to progress in my career. And similarly, I do need it to excel, but to get to where I want to be. Not quite as black and white in my business as how Sue said it, but it kind of goes to be more senior, and especially to be signatories, you have to have your so I started with my incorporated engineer status for now, and then I want to get chartered in the future.
So this is fascinating to me because I don't know if it's just software as a different industry, but in my current company, certainly there's very little fuss about being chartered at all. I don't think I know of anyone who is chartered. It's just not a big thing. Maybe it's just something that I don't see. In my old company, it was a bit of a thing, but that was because the company worked alongside the IET. And that's actually why I want to get chartered, because when I joined, they're like, oh, okay, we'll pay for you to get your IET and you can become a member of the IET. So IBB Lloyd, MIET. And I was like, okay, that's really cool, because like my role models and stuff like that all had it, and it was really interesting. And I called them up and was like, oh, it's not letting me do it. And they were like, that's because you don't have an engineering degree. And I felt itty bitty. I felt so small. I was like, oh, this is it. And this is imposter syndrome again. But for me, it was like, if I get this accreditation, which I can now get, and I actually have been procrastinating putting off, I will then be like seen as viable. I'll be seen as like someone who knows what they're doing and knows what they're talking about. And I think for me, it's like, because I don't have the relevant degree, I think for me that's why it's so important. It's that she knows what she's doing thing, just so I can prove it to everyone who doesn't think so. So, Lucy, talk us through how you got your chartership.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I chose to go for my IEng first, and the reason I did that, I kind of wanted to set myself some shorter-term goals. So when I first started on my graduate scheme, I set myself quite an ambitious target of get my IEng before I finished the graduate scheme. So I was in all my cohorts. I felt great. Kind of having that deadline really, really motivated me. The reason I wanted to go for my IEng before my CEng was just basically my company policy. So kind of similar to you were saying, B, that my company will pay for my membership to one professional engineering institution. I think it's something like for a year or maybe 2 years as you're working towards your accreditation, and then once you've got it, they'll pay for it whilst you're there. So obviously I had the relevant experience to get my IEng, and that was then a tick. Once I got it, I could get it paid for whilst I was then building up the relevant experience I needed to get my CEng. The new part of the story is, like I said, I wanted to have that kind of professional backing and having that seal of approval to say, look, I have got my accreditation. My journey, it's quite a long one. So every institution, their processes are slightly different. So it all works off the same UK spec and the same competencies, but each institution will ask for it to be laid out slightly differently. Our society is quite wordy, so I had to do, I think it's a maximum of 4 examples, but for every sub-competency, so it's quite a lot. But there is a word limit per competency, so obviously the more examples you do, so you can go up to 4. If you choose 4, you've got less words to write about each one, but you need to be able to show a few different examples. So it was quite a word heavy one. There's a lot of writing to be done, and all credit to my partner, because he's got a law background, so he's wordy, so he helps me with anything I have to write. He kind of gives it that finesse. So he comes and sprinkles his little like magic law fairy dust onto it.
It's really handy.
Honestly, it's invaluable. It was just a lot of hours, to be honest. But like I said, that's fine with me. I don't mind doing the hours, and I'd rather have like a more word heavy process. And then the interview it's not really easy. I don't think it's fair to say it's easy, but I didn't have to do a presentation or anything like that, because I showed everything in the application, because it's such a big application. So that's fine, that suited me. I also went for the Royal Aero Society because I'm an aeronautical engineer. I have a master's degree in aeronautical engineering. My degree was accredited by the IET and by the Royal Aero Society, so it kind of made sense. They already recognised my degree. I just chose one of the deadlines. So the way the Royal Aero Society works, and you can let me know if your societies are the same. They have submission deadlines, and you have to submit before that deadline, whichever one it is. So you can literally submit at any point, and after that deadline, they'll hold a review council. I think something like 4 weeks after the deadline. So then you kind of get put into that one. So I simply picked one of the deadlines. I had my internal deadline of before I finished the graduate scheme, and it just drove me to work towards it. And it was quite a lot of hours outside of work. I could have got it done through work. I just had too much work to do in work to really ambitious target that I'd set myself. But I didn't mind. Honestly, I just got myself a glass of wine every night whilst I did it, and that was my little motivator. Once I sat there and wrote it, I was allowed a glass of wine. that helps. I absolutely recommend that if you like wine. It's just a great motivator. And I had a mentor that came through the company as well. My business provided really great support, to be fair. They put on registration webinars. They provide them through different societies as well. So the society themselves provided tours. So yeah, I got great support, and just it was all just deadline focused for me because I'm clearly just very deadline driven.
And wine driven, apparently.
It worked.
FYI, as a board, we seem to lean more towards Marlborough, New Zealand Marlborough, Sauvignon Blanc. No, I would recommend Brancott because you can get, it's nice, it tastes like lemon, and you can get 6 of them for 40 quid from Costco.
I've just got my Costco card.
Did you get it through your work? Mine do it as well.
No, well, that was actually, there you go. That was, you know what? I take it all back. That was my biggest motivator to get my chartership, is I could not qualify for a Costco card, and I chartered engineer was one of the things I qualified for.
It's the best thing about being chartered. Wait, maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Costco is like Disneyland for adults. It's the best ever.
Yeah. Okay, so Susie, what was your experience of getting chartered?
So my experience was that I work for a consultancy, and we work for clients. All the work I do is for clients, and so we charge clients for the work that we do, and we can charge more for chartered engineers than engineers who are not chartered. And so that's why my company push it a lot, because can charge more for the same person doing the same work. But it is good because it means there's support there. So when I started as a graduate, like 6 years ago, I knew that it was something that I was going to have to do, but it's recommended that you don't apply for chartership through the IET until you have 5 years of industry experience to get the CEng. And so when I was maybe 4 years in, I realised, right, I'm going to really need to get my finger out. And then it was many, many months of saying I really need to get my finger out and not really doing anything about it. And then eventually, I think as soon as you just open up a Word document and write the title, it becomes easier to then start writing the application. So with the IET for CEng, the main bulk of the application is a career history that you need to write, which was recommended to me as a kind of chronological order career history from graduate to current. And then with your experience, with your responsibility growing, the amount that you would write would grow as well. So the most recent projects would have the most written about them, kind of things. It was hard to get through it. There's no beating around the bush. It was hard to get through it, especially because I didn't have the time to do it during work times either. And so it was all time that I could be having fun. I was sitting writing about what I had done in work that day, which was the last thing I want to be doing. And so
evil journal.
Exactly. I did not enjoy writing it at all, but I knew it was something that once it was done, it'd be a huge weight off. And then, like Fiona said, it's a driving license. You get it, and then at least you've got it if you ever need it.
Got my driving license.
We'll come back to that. But what really helped me and what really kind of accelerated my writing of the report was finding other people in the office who were also going through that and meeting up with them at the weekend to write it together. Because then at least they're not having fun with me as well. You're not the only one not having fun. You're both not having fun together.
Loves company.
Exactly. So I would meet up with colleagues from different teams applying to different institutions, and we would just sit in coffee shops and write stuff up, and I got most of it done that way. And then lots of support within the company to review and to do mock interviews and things. Really, once the application was sent in, that was the hard bit, and then it was just preparing for the interview. My experience of that was them kind of just checking that what you'd written in the report was all true. So I felt that was a lot easier than the writing of the report.
Yeah, that was the same for my interview. They're kind of just validating that
Yeah.
you are who you say you are, and they were your
Mhm.
experiences. It wasn't something to fear.
Yeah, they weren't interrogating or anything. My experience was they really wanted you to do well. They helped you get where they wanted you to get. So, yeah, it's
I had
worth
a
doing.
I had a similar sort of experience with my portfolio because I took an apprenticeship to get into tech, and it was similar sort of like we were given like a 20% allocation, but like none of us ever took it because we were always really busy, and it was you had to like write up what you'd done that week, write a lot about it. I worked on some more secure projects, so there was actually a real limit to what I could write, which was really difficult. And then the interview, you could tell they really wanted you to do well. But some of the questions they asked you was obviously to try and like get you to show off your knowledge, but like if it's putting you on the spot, it makes you panic. So talking of putting on the spot, Fiona,
Yeah.
where are you at so far?
So I'm at the bit that Susie described of, oh, I need to do it, and I'm not doing it. So
We're
again,
gonna
I'm
make
like,
a podcast series about it.
yeah. Do you know what? Right, I'm a true procrastinator. I will do it under pressure. I'll do it if I have to. It's just that if I don't have to, if there's nothing pushing it, I really struggle to like get the motivation. Because like Susie said, like I want to be doing more fun things when I get home from work. But if there's a motivation, and part of the motivation for mine as well is to get it in the next year. Well, one reason I put it on my objectives last year, which that will come around the end of next month, that I need to have at least started it. But the other reason is my company, there's like a very, very small pay incentive, like very small bonus, like one-off bonus if you get it within 6 years of joining the company. And I hit 5 years in October, so I'm getting close. It's not a lot of money, but it's more of a, you do it. And another reason that fits in well with my procrastinating is my manager has told me, I think when I joined the team a while ago, he said he did his chartership very late in his career compared to most people now. He was maybe 20 years in, maybe a bit less. But he said the interview was so much harder, and he felt like the interviewers were giving him a really hard time and asking a lot of like, why didn't you do this earlier? And the other people getting interviewed at the same time who were early career came out and said, oh, it was a breeze. They're just checking I was who I said I was and checking it was really mine.
Interesting.
So that was quite oh yeah, this will be easier if I do it soon. So currently, I'm at the point where I realise I've got the right amount of experience. Like Susie said, a lot of them have a kind of, here's a chunk of like you should have 4 or 6, however many years experience first. So the IKME stuff tended to be around 4 years, they'd say. And I'm over 4 years now. So I was always putting off at first for, oh, I'll just wait till I got the experience. Oh, I'll just wait until I've done a bit more of this. And now I think I'm at the bit where I've got enough boxes ticked that I should be getting on with it. And it's more about figuring out the stuff that I've done. Does it actually sit in those boxes properly? So the same with everyone else's. There's the written part, there's a report of some sort, and then the interview, and the reports they'll all be similar, but it's kind of tick boxes of areas, checking you've covered the right sorts of topics. And one of the big reasons I always put it off was I really thought I didn't cover one of the big topics. So like the main thing as a chemical engineer was chemical engineering design, and just from the routes my career took so far, I wasn't sitting there designing a relief valve, which is like a really, really basic thing in chemical engineering. And I still haven't done that. And I really panicked that I wasn't going to have enough stuff to write about and to write it properly. And it took a bit of talking to other people that I work with for them to like reframe the stuff that I do, because I'm a chemical engineer that works in a data team. And it's probably not data the way that like maybe you think about it as a software engineer, but it's really numbers heavy, and it's like trends and analysing data over time periods for like production on plants. It doesn't feel, or to me it didn't feel like the classic I'm a chemical process engineer. So yeah, it took a bit of talking to other people. But I'm also in the panic stages of, I should have done it as part of my grad scheme because the support was there. And I put it off because I started my job in not the main office, and the person I was given as my mentor was in the main office. And it just made it really hard for me personally. Like I don't love being on the phone. That was definitely not a time when people had cameras on either. it just made it really hard for me. I think I spoke to them once and they went, well, you've just started, come back to me in 6 months. And I didn't because I panicked. And then it just became harder and harder to get back to it. And then I panicked that I couldn't do it anymore because I didn't have the people to back it up. And thankfully, everyone tends to find this. Nice people are everywhere. I spoke to someone else about it. It came up in conversation and I said, I've procrastinated. I need to do it. And they said, send me your report. I'll proofread it for you. I'm a mentor for someone else. And it just kind of goes to show that people will help, even if it's not the assigned person in the company. People are there to help you. People want you to do well. And it's really encouraging. But yeah, I need to get it on paper.
I have some advice that you could try. It worked for me, and this is like for anyone that's at that point where they need to get it down on paper. They need to get something down on paper but don't really know where to start. So it's the engineering council that the chartership competencies all come from, and no matter what body you get chartered through, it's all the same competencies. It's just different institutions have different processes for proving that you meet all the competencies. So I essentially wrote all the competencies down in an Excel spreadsheet. You can do it wherever you want. And then for each one, bullet pointed like things that I'd done that hit that competency. Eventually I had a big long list, and every competency I had stuff written down. And then, well, I wrote mine in chronological order, but depending on how you need to write your report, I then just, every time I just went back to that list, and when I used one of them, I scored it off. And by the end, I just made sure that I had to hit every single one of the boxes within the report. And that really, really helped me actually just get started to like get something down on paper.
I was going to say, I did the same thing for my apprenticeship because we also had a list of competencies we had to hit, but I instead scored it red, amber, green, depending on how confident I was I'd fully hit it. Because what you were saying, Fiona, is you weren't sure like everything fitted into the competencies. I had a similar thing where like my experience wasn't necessarily ad verbatim what they wanted. So I went through all of that, and then I had, rather than like a massive list of things that I was like red on, it was actually most of the stuff I'm fine. Here's a few things I'm unsure on or I don't think I have.
Mhm.
And I could either ask for how can I go get this experience, or I could, if it was amber, I could kind of say like how can I either add to this or reframe it, or kind of like not make it fit, but link it together.
Yeah, kind of similarly, the way I did it was also in this Excel sheet, and I made a matrix. So I had along the top all the competencies, and then I just put all down the side. Every single experience I'd ever had is how I started it. Just absolutely like offloaded onto this spreadsheet. I went along and put X's where I thought it hit them. So, for example, like I might have had, an entry, and it might have been like A1, B2, C3, D4 kind of thing. And just put whatever I think it hit. And then once I'd spent, to be honest, I did spend quite a lot of time doing that, and just every time I thought, oh, I've done a new task and added it on, I kind of put it in where I thought it fit. Then started looking at, well, I know I can only put for my options method a maximum of 4 for each one. So then looking at what are my strongest 4, and ones where I thought, oh, actually that probably doesn't fit as well there. And you can only really talk about, again, for my society's one, you can only really talk about like an example so many times. If you keep using the same example for all your competencies, you'll look like you don't have as many examples. So okay, well, I really want to put this example, and I think it fits here better, so I'll take it out of there. And what else can I fit there? And I just started by absolutely offloading on literally anything I'd ever done. I put university experiences in there, things that aren't engineering. So things like this, you could absolutely put the YPB in your chartership write-up. When I was in university, I did some kind of councils, like extra things. So I was program president. That went in there. I was going to just get absolutely everything on there, and then started ticking off. Well, these aren't as strong. Take these out, and it just helps by just word vomiting on the page, I found. And then, but it kind of gives you quite a nice view as well. Actually, I've done so much more than I realised I've done, and that's quite a boost.
Yeah, because that's one of the things I think that was stopping me was, it's funny how all this links together. It comes back to a bit of imposter syndrome of, every time I was like, right, I've been here this amount of time, I should be getting on with this. I just went, no, I've not done enough yet. Like, there's no way what I've done qualifies me to be chartered. Like, I really haven't got that type of work. And it only takes a couple of casual conversations with people for them to say, oh, well, no, but actually you do this thing and you do it really well and you've done a lot of it, for you to realise that fits. It just didn't, from the way it was worded, it didn't make me think it was the same thing. And I think as well, I think from talking to everyone else on the board, I feel like sometimes my work is maybe slightly different because everyone talks about projects, and it's not that I don't do like chunks of work, but a lot of my work is like recurring daily or like monthly and weekly things, and I don't get assigned to a project. I am overseeing continuous stuff at a lot of different places that sometimes, because it's just my daily grind of like every day go in and check this thing and once a month do this giant task, that it makes it a bit harder to like assign it to a bucket and say this is a task I did really well, because you start brushing off stuff you do all the time. So it's like, oh, but I do that every month. On the other hand, I oversee like production numbers and financials for 30 plus sites across Europe. It's like it's all in the mindset, and it just takes either writing it down or just chatting to someone else to like see it with a new perspective.
I found quite helpful as well when I did that matrix. It allowed me to see where my gaps were, and it kind of gave me that gap analysis. And then I sat down with my manager and I was like, well, I want to get my ING. This is what I've got so far. Clearly, I've got this big gap here in, I don't know, let's say C3. What can I do to get that C3 experience? And I work with them to get me something that fit into that experience. So it allowed me to start tailoring what I was doing to fit my needs, and it's what I'm going to do for my CNG as well. Start putting my experiences in and say, well, I've got gaps here, how do I fill them?
Yeah. By the way, two things. First thing, your matrix, Lucy, is like a much more efficient method of doing what I did, because I had all the competencies and then I had the same thing coming up in multiple boxes. So everyone do the matrix thing. But the other thing I was going to say, I think there's a misconception that you need to be an expert in every competency as well to apply. And Engineering Council don't expect you to be an expert in every competency to get your CEng. So you're allowed to have areas where you don't have as much experience in, and you can apply with that background as long as you are expert in other areas. You know, you don't have to be an expert in everything.
Yeah, something that took me a really long time to figure out, and I know I'm going to go through exactly the same heartache when I start with my CEng, is the UK spec is written in black and white because it's meant to fit a single type of engineering. So it's got to go from mechanical to software to aeronautical to chemical. It has to fit all of them. So it's super, super generic. Then how you fit that into your work, and you have to move out of the black and white, move into the grey, is really hard. So something I struggle with, like, it was about like managing people and that like management side of it. And I was kind of like, well, I didn't have people working for me at the time. I wasn't a line manager, and it was how you move out of that mindset. Well, actually, okay, I might not be a line manager, but I manage projects and I've managed people, like pieces of work that had stakeholders in. I was therefore managing people because I was managing my stakeholders. It's just how you frame it. And that's not to say that you're lying about what you're doing. It's just thinking about it differently. You're still managing people. You imagine their expectations and you imagine the work that's coming into you. You're just not their line manager. And that's just one example of like absolutely hundreds that when you go through your chartership experiences, don't read it as black and white. It's how it fits to your career, and that is really, really hard. I'm not saying it's easy and it takes time, but you just got to keep reminding yourself it doesn't have to be like exactly how this is written. I'll still have experiences that fit it when I just think about it a bit differently.
I think I had the exact same experience, Lucy, and I think a lot of that is talking to other people who have been through the process and getting their advice, and they've got advice from someone else. Because like I had the same in the management in the C's. I'm not directly a line manager for anyone. I'm not managing. And then it took other people to say, yeah, but you're managing contractors, you're managing clients, you're managing relationships with external people. And then you realise actually you are fitting it. You just have to look at it in a different way.
I think also maybe remember what was difficult for you, because I think when you're writing it I think that's the easiest way to like bullet point it as you go, like throughout your entire career. Nobody is doing that. Nobody. And I think what is a little bit harder to realize in like retrospect is like all the stuff that was really difficult for you, it's still like a learning process, it's still like a commitment to your engineering career. And that's still something that you've done and something you've achieved, even though it doesn't feel like it now. Like at one point in your life, it was difficult to walk, it was difficult to talk, you had to learn those things. That's still an achievement. Maybe a bad example, but I think in terms
I was talking about this the other day, about how it can only take like 2 or 3 months for you to look back and go, why did I find that thing hard? That's like every day to me now. But yeah, it's just keeping in mind that you did have to learn to do that, and it was work to get there. Yeah.
everyone's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Especially you, Fiona, because you've got to get it done.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good reminder, like Susie said, about you don't need to be an expert. I think that's part of what a lot of people do, especially ones like us where you want to try and do things early in your career and you think, I've got to be the best to prove to everyone that I can do it. But if the expectation is to get your chartership, say within 5 years of the beginning of your career, who on earth is going to expect you to be an expert at that stage? Like, no one thinks that you're going to be the top person in your field 5 years in. Like, you're just a baby engineer at that point. So it's a good reminder to, talk yourself up and do the stuff, like point out what you've done that's been good, but you don't have to be the best person in the room. You just have to be good at what you're doing.
One of the points I've written down for lessons learned, is it helpful to you to make a deadline for the next time we're going to record a podcast, and the next time we're going to check in, and then everyone listening has to hold Fiona accountable? We have comments on Spotify now, so they can comment now if you don't.
Absolutely right. So when I said at the start about it's in my objectives, our objectives run with our financial year, which ends at the end of September. So I think I have like a very small deadline in mind that would work for then.
Okay.
Because it's a bit like it's not the report, but it's a bit about the supporting documents and how I need to do it differently because I didn't go with Mentor. So I think that one, because then I need to have done something to tick off my objectives because it's in a new system, it's in HR, and we have to have said we've done it. So the point was we wrote it so that I can say, okay, I've officially started, and we can tick it off. So yeah. Yes.
So you're gonna get that section done.
Yes.
What section is it?
I don't have the exact name, but it's like the kind of supporting documents before the report. I'll see if I can grab the name quickly. Yeah, so it's the accredited company training scheme is like doing it as part of your grad scheme, and then there's the IPD assessment. So I think it's the IPD assessment because I didn't talk to my mentor and do the accredited one. So yeah, the IPD assessment, I think, initial professional development.
Just reminded me, part of my chartership, I had to write a technical report, so like something like a project that I'd done. And it's like a massive piece of chartership that I just totally forgot about. So I'm adding it now. My bad. I clearly enjoyed it.
So I reckon you should do the Matrix as well. And then next podcast you can talk us. I feel like Lucy needs to give a masterclass on this at some point.
God bless my manager sent it to me, so big up Sophie Harker.
Okay, so end of September we will do another podcast. We'll check in on Fiona and we'll come back with you for some more advice. I can share what I've currently got written down. Number 1, have a partner / have someone look over your write-up. But apparently your partners were all really useful, so there you go, Fiona. Pass it on to your partner. Glass of wine. Just keep a bottle in the fridge all the time, but more generally a reward. Sometimes a Costco card. Who knows? Get a driving license that's for me to do. Make friends who are also suffering, but also talk to people. I think they can give you a new perspective. Making a deadline, if that's helpful for you. Remember that you may need to reframe your experience, make it grey rather than just black or white. I didn't realise at all, actually, that we all have the same engineering thing. I don't even know what you'll do like day to day half the time. Make a spreadsheet and use that spreadsheet to identify your weaker areas, but just generally gives you really good coverage overview. And probably start it a little bit earlier, but I didn't want to put that on. I still haven't started it, so I can't chat too much.
Sometimes it just doesn't work to start earlier. Sometimes you need the fear of the deadline hanging over you to actually do it. Or some sort of incentive, like a wee bonus or something like that, to actually get it done.
Thank you everyone for joining us for the first episode of the Survival Guide for Chartership. Join us next time. We're going to check in on Fiona, see if she's made her deadline or not, and hold her accountable as we make sure she gets the full accreditation she deserves. Thank you everyone. Bye!
Bye.
Bye.